framework, whether you know it or not. Last week was split into two distinct intelligence threads. Wednesday was dominated by incident reporting. Friday became a reckoning on defense. Both are critical to how you make decisions about AI in your business this month and next. Let me start with Wednesday's stories. Wednesday, May 20th, the incidents. The lead, GitHub breach confirmed, Team PCP supply chain escalates. On Wednesday morning, GitHub confirmed what security researchers had been tracking for 72 hours. The platform's internal infrastructure had been compromised. Not a customer repository, GitHub itself. Here is what happened. The threat actor group behind Team PCP, the same group that has been systematically compromising open source libraries and supply chain tooling for months, gained access to GitHub's internal systems. Once inside, they exfiltrated source code, API credentials, and internal security documentation. The company disclosed the breach immediately. They took the right steps. They revoked exposed credentials. They notified affected customers. They began an audit of what was actually taken. But here is what matters to you. If your development team is using GitHub, and statistically, if you have more than 30 developers, they are then your source code, your commit history, your deployment patterns, and your API integrations have been exposed to an adversary who understands how to monetize that information at scale. GitHub is not special to Team PCP. GitHub is a target directory. Every major open source project lives there. Every enterprise using GitHub Enterprise has their proprietary code there. Every developer credential, every webhook, every integration point is logged. For an adversary, one successful breach of GitHub is equivalent to breaching 5,000 smaller companies simultaneously. The business impact here is not just today, it is forward-looking. Any secret you committed to a GitHub repository in the last 12 months is now in an attacker's hands. Any API key that was ever stored in your .env file and accidentally committed, even if you deleted it later, was captured. The forensic work your team now faces is substantial. Your immediate action: pull your GitHub audit logs for the past 4 months, look for any unexpected access patterns, check every personal access token, and revoke anything you cannot immediately identify. If you use GitHub secrets for CI/CD, assume they have been compromised and rotate them now. The second story, VS Code supply chain, NX console weaponized. The same week, the NX console extension for Visual Studio Code was found to contain malicious code. NX console is not some obscure tool. It is the official extension for the NX monorepo framework, which is used by thousands of mid-market and enterprise development teams to manage large code bases. The attack was simple but devastating. The attacker updated the extension with code that executed silently in the background of VS Code, exfiltrating environment, variables, and authentication tokens from your developer's machine. This is not a theoretical attack. This is your actual development environment being weaponized against your security posture. What makes this particularly significant is the distribution mechanism. VS Code's extension marketplace is trusted. Developers do not treat a marketplace download as a potential threat vector because the marketplace itself is supposed to be curated. This is the same assumption that was breached with Bitwarden CLI 2 months ago. The same assumption that was breached with the PI supply chain attacks before that. The pattern is now clear. If you are relying on automatic updates, if you are not pinning specific versions of your development tools, and if you do not have visibility into what code is running on your developers' machines, you are exposed to this entire attack category. Your immediate action: if you use NX Console or any development extension, audit the installed version. Check your organization's VS Code configuration. Do you have an allow list of approved extensions? If not, you need one. Every extension your developers have installed should be a deliberate choice, not a convenience. The third story: Grafana Labs codebase stolen, CI/CD pipeline compromised. On Monday this week, Grafana Labs announced that their continuous integration and deployment pipeline had been compromised. It was Monday of last week, which is the week I'm reviewing the AI breach report. So the attacker gained access to the CI/CD system, which meant they could view internal code, see deployment secrets, and potentially manipulate the build and release process itself. Grafana is a critical infrastructure tool. Thousands of enterprises run Grafana for monitoring, observability, and alerting. If the build pipeline is compromised, the question is not just what code was stolen, but what was the released version of Grafana itself manipulated. The question is not just what code was stolen, but was the release version of Grafana itself manipulated? Grafana's disclosure statement was responsible. They stated they found no evidence that released binaries were modified. But that statement comes with a caveat. The breach window was 72 hours. A sophisticated attacker can do a lot of damage in 72 hours. The deeper concern is this: Grafana Labs is a well-resourced, security-conscious company. They have a dedicated security team. They have incident response procedures. And they were still vulnerable to a CI/CD compromise. This tells you something important about the current threat landscape. The attack surface has moved from your perimeter to your development pipeline. The defenders who win in 2026 are the ones who secure the place where code is actually written, tested, and built. Your immediate action: if you use Grafana, update to the latest version and audit your own deployment artifacts. If you have your own CI/CD pipeline, check your integration history. Who has access? What secrets are stored in plain text? Can you trace every build back to a specific commit? If you cannot answer these questions, you have a gap. The week's running intelligence. Microsoft Patch Tuesday in May brought the expected set of critical fixes. Organizations running unpatched Windows environments are the low-hanging fruit for anyone following the Grafana or GitHub disclosures. Patch immediately. PyPI supply chain, the durable task library was compromised as part of the same team PCP campaign. If your Python-based infrastructure depends on assume your package vector, use dependency pinning, use hash verification. Interpol Operation Rames. This week, Interpol announced a coordinated takedown targeting cybercrime infrastructure across multiple jurisdictions. Over 2,000 individuals were arrested and millions of euros worth of seized assets. The significance is this: the regulatory and law enforcement response to cybercrime is accelerating. Threat actors are no longer operating with impunity. UK Ofcom deepfakes ruling. The UK communications regulator issued new guidance on synthetic media and deepfakes. If you operate in the UK or European market, this is regulatory noise, becoming regulatory requirement. You now have obligations around authenticating communications and detecting AI-generated content. Google Threat Intelligence Report. Google's GTIG unit released an analysis of how advanced threat actors are now using AI to improve their reconnaissance and targeting. This is not sensational. This is what all the evidence from Team PCP, Grafana, and GitHub points to. Attackers have integrated AI into their operational workflows. Your defense posture needs to match. So we go to the part two of the AI breach report. Part two is Friday, May 22nd, the defense reckoning. The critical vulnerability CVE 2026-44338 PraisonAI authentication bypass. Friday brought a vulnerability that encapsulates the entire problem with how businesses are currently deploying AI. PraisonAI is a framework. It is designed to orchestrate multiple AI agents working in concert. A newer pattern that is gaining traction in enterprise environments. Organizations use it to automate workflows, email processing, document analysis, decision support, customer interaction. The framework handles the coordination. But PraisonAI shipped with authentication disabled by default, not misconfigured, not defaulting to weak credentials, actually disabled. This means that if you deployed PraisonAI inside your network or was exposed it to the internet, anyone who could reach the server could trigger any workflow it was configured to run. The exploitation began 74 minutes after the public advisory. Let me be precise about what exploitation began means. Within an hour and 24 minutes, attackers had identified vulnerable instances where triggering workflows and were extracting data or pivoting into connected systems. This is not a hypothetical. This is what actually happened. And it happened at a time when organizations are rushing to deploy AI agents without security governance frameworks in place. The vulnerability reveals a structural problem. Developers are building AI orchestration tools with default configurations that assume a trusted environment. But a trusted environment inside a business running 50 different integrations with staff using cloud storage, with APIs connected to HR systems and financial databases is not a trusted environment. It is a network and networks get breached. What you need to do immediately, if you are running PraisonAI or any similar multi-agent framework, authenticate access to it. Do not assume defaults. Do not assume internal networks are safe. Excuse me, run it behind an authentication layer. Log every invocation. If you are planning to deploy agentic AI, require an architecture review before deployment. The pattern from Grafana, GitHub, and now PraisonAI is that the tools you trust are becoming the tools you get breached through. The supply chain thread continues. Tanstack and lookalike domains. Tanstack, a widely used JavaScript framework for building interactive interfaces, was compromised through its build infrastructure. This is the same pattern, not the source code itself, but the build and release mechanism. Parallel to this, security researchers identified a rise in lookalike domains. Organizations are registering domains that look almost identical to legitimate AI tools. Employees searching for ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini are directed fake versions, prompted to log in, and their credentials are captured. These credentials are then sold or used for lateral movement into corporate systems. This is credential harvesting at a scale. It is low-tech but extremely effective. And it is enabled by the same confusion that exists around official versus third-party AI tool access. If your organization has not published an approved list of which AI tools can be used and where credentials must be stored, you are vulnerable to this attack vector. The regulatory inflection, UK ICO AI governance guidance. On Thursday, the UK Information Commissioner's Office issued updated guidance on how organizations must govern AI systems. The guidance covers accountability, transparency, data protection, and algorithmic impact. Read that list again: accountability, transparency, data protection, algorithmic impact. These are not suggestions. These are regulatory expectations. If you cannot demonstrate who approved the deployment of a specific AI system in your organization, you're out of compliance. If you cannot explain how it makes decisions, you're out of compliance. If you cannot account for the data flowing through it, you are out of compliance. The regulatory window for we are still figuring out AI has closed. It is May 2026. You are expected to govern it. What this means operationally: you need an AI governance committee, you need a registry of which AI systems are deployed, where you need documentation of what data they can access. You need to know who approved each one. This is not hard, but it requires intentional work. Start now. Synthesis: why this week matters. Wednesday showed us what happens when you do not defend the systems that build your software. GitHub was compromised. Grafana's pipeline was compromised. VS Code extensions were weaponized. The development layer, the place where all your software begins, is now a target. Friday showed us that the tools organizations are rushing to deploy to automate that software development are being deployed without security controls. Authentication off by default, no approval workflows, no audit trails. These are not separate problems, they are problems with two faces. You cannot secure your supply chain if the tools you use to build software are compromised. You cannot build trustworthy AI if the frameworks you use to orchestrate each ship with authentication disabled. The businesses that will survive this cycle are the ones making three changes first. Three changes right now. First of the three changes, they are securing the development layer. Every tool a developer touches, every repository they push to, every build system they interact with needs authentication. Logging and approval workflows, this is not optional. Second, they are governing. AI deployment. If you have deployed an AI system in your organization without documentation, you have a compliance problem. Audit it, document it, potentially shut it down if it is not approved. Third, they are implementing version pinning and dependency integrity checking. Do not download the latest version of a library on every build. Do not trust the latest release. Specify exact versions. Verify hashes. Know what code is running. These three changes will protect you against 90% of the supply chain attacks now being deployed. They will also put you ahead of regulatory requirements that are coming. Last week gave us GitHub, Grafana, and VS Code extensions. This week will bring something else. The pattern is established. The threat actors have learned to exploit the places organizations trust most: the development tools, the deployment systems, the AI frameworks. Your response is not to stop using these tools. That is not an option. Your response is to use them differently, with verification, with approval, with accountability. The AI Breach Report publishes every Wednesday and Friday on LinkedIn. If you are not subscribed, find it under the AI Breach Report. Share it with anyone in your organization between 50 and 200 employees. This intelligence is built for business leaders who need to make decisions about security. That is you. I'm Frederick Herbert Wakuliaka from Frederick Cybersecurity. I'll see you on Wednesday. Thank you.